Hey, this is Tyler with Survivopedia. I'm going to knock out a quick video on how to do a snare. Got one in my pocket here. This is the finished product. There's some intricate things, just like me watching someone play the violin. I don't know what I'm doing, right? I'm like, oh, I can do that. I have no idea what I'm doing. When it comes to watching something like this, there are some intricacies that I need to point out so you know what you're seeing. So this bend right here, there's two bends in this, and it's basically forcing itself open, right? So what we want to do is and I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. I'll actually show you how to make this in a little bit. So we want to bend it so that it closes automatically, and then we want to open it until it grips on that little edge. So what's going to happen, also there's two little barbs which are just leftover metal. So once a rabbit goes through and it grabs that little barb, it's going to pull, and once it goes past this point, should automatically push itself shut, right? Change the angle on this a little bit. So now if I test it, it just goes automatically. So the reason that we want this to happen, and then of course on this back side, I'm either going to make it longer or I'm going to tie it to some string. The reason I don't make the whole thing wire is it's a waste of wire. You want wire where the animal can bite at it and claw at it. Outside of that, you can use string or whatever you want. So if we look at just the actual mechanism and the way that it closed, there's a bend here, and then there's a springiness to the trap. So if the rabbit goes through, it's going to grab these little barbs that are hanging off, and once it goes past that bend, it automatically closes. And that automatic closing is just enough that it startles the animal and runs. When they run, it tightens it down, and just quickly, it's a quick passing, quick death, so that there's no suffering. And this is a way I learned from a seer instructor up in Canada to make these snare traps. I'm going to show you how to make them right now. So the first thing you need is a little bit of wire. This is 20 gauge snare wire. It's brass wire. The reason we do that is because if a deer steps in this brass wire, the deer is not going to be held by it. They'll be able to wiggle it and pop it free and get out. If a rabbit or a squirrel is caught by something of this low gauge, they're not going to get out. So you can create this snare with single strand, or you can create it with double strand. The double strand and double strand locking are going to be stronger, and they're going to handle larger animals. So maybe I'm targeting a trash panda, right? Maybe I'm targeting a raccoon, or maybe I'm targeting a porcupine, or maybe I'm targeting a rabbit, or maybe I'm targeting a squirrel. If we're just targeting a squirrel, we just do something small, right? I'm quite literally, there's my squirrel snare, right? Break that puppy off and I'm good to go. I'm going to bend it tight, and then I'm going to leave that little dent so that when I set it up and the squirrel goes past that dent, it should automatically tighten it up. I got to tighten it up a little bit more. So again, there's a nice large piece here. As soon as the squirrel pulls it past, cranks right down. I would secure this to the other side of a tree or whatever. All I did was wrap that once or twice. It's nothing fancy. Squirrels do not require a huge amount of work. They're small. So if we're going to make the larger trap, pull out a bigger chunk, and I'm going to have to double this over, so I need to make sure I have enough length to recreate one of these. Now, a lot of people get worked up about using a Leatherman or something to pinch this. You don't need it. All you need to do is tie a slip knot, right? Make sure that's focusing on there. Tie a slip knot, make it snug, and then yank on it. The quick friction is going to break it, okay? That's just a slip knot. If I do this right, breaks it right in half. I don't need to bend it or do anything silly with it, and I can put the remainder of this stuff away. So now I'm going to take this guy right here, And get the ends together like this. If you've got a pencil or something, stick it in there. But you're just going to start twisting it. Now before I get too far, I'm going to create a loop here and wrap it around. This loop is this loop in the end, right? Give myself a little more length. A pencil is great to use. I don't have one, so I'm going to use my finger, which is about what you normally... Everybody's got fingers, I hope. Okay, and I'm going to leave these little grabbers hanging off. I'm doing that on purpose. So I've doubled it over, and then on the loose end, I created that guy right there. Okay, that's the loop with the twist and some little hangers. These are fur grabbers. Now, I'm going to take this whole thing and twist it. See if I can use a carabiner or something. Think outside the box. You can tie this to a tree, whatever you got. Let me twisting for a minute. Alright, so I twisted the crap out of that. If you don't have a carabiner like I do, yeah, just be creative. Use a pencil, use a piece of a stick. Use your fingers, whatever you got. Alright, so I twisted it a bunch of times so I have the center of the cord there. It's all twisted. And then I brought it up here, put it over it. I made this about the diameter of my pinky, wrapped it around until I got two little legs hanging off there. Those legs are important. I'm going to take the raw end and put the center end through it, right? And then I'm going to tighten it up. I can tighten it around the can, I can tighten it around my hand, however I want to do it. I just need to induce some bend into it, okay? So that it does that automatically. And then somewhere right about here, I'm just going to create a little shelf so that, let me take these wings, they're a little bit too long. But I want them to stick out in both directions. So as I open this up to that little shelf, that little shelf's a little too far. I want this to be about fist height, and I'm going to put it about, if this is the ground, I'm going to put it about that high off the ground so a rabbit will go through it. I want to funnel the rabbit, and I want to pick a location that I know that they're going. In front of their den, in front of the water, in a super high pathway. If you find green poop, they will be back to re-eat that green poop. You can put it there. Put it somewhere that you know that they're going to go. So just like I said a minute ago, I create my loop. I've already introduced spring into it. I'm going to kind of change the direction of these little wires. I want them to point front and back on the inside so that if a rabbit comes through, it's kind of firing off a little bit too easy there. If a rabbit comes through this direction, their fur grabs this way. If it comes through that direction, the fur grabs that way. And then as it starts to close, goes over that little loop. Tighten this guy up even a little more. Kind of getting a little overkill, but 5% extra effort equals 100% extra catching of the rabbits. It's not exactly how the quote goes, but I'm going to roll with it. So there's my snare. I'm going to put this guy somewhere on a tree. Ideally something that's already got roots that rabbit or whatever you catch is not going to pull out. As it goes through, that fur is going to grab it. It's going to jump past there. It's going to run, and boom, Bob's your mother's brother. All right, guys, hopefully that was valuable to you. Check out your local laws before you make or use these. And if you're going to use some kind of wire, use actual trapping wire that will break if some large game steps in it, like this. Do that on purpose. When I double this up, it doubles the strength, right? So if I had 22 gauge wire, treat it like half of 22 is like 12 and a half, right? My math is horrible. The maths. It's like 10 or 11 gauge wire. The reason we double this up is to add strength. If you're just going for small game, don't double it up. And that's it. Thank you for watching. maybe go get me some rabbit.